3, 2, 1.
Hey, what's up, 745ers? Sky and this feeling. How you guys feeling?
Feeling good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. Welcome back to the 745 Teen Mental Health Podcast.
Yay!
Woo, woo.
We have. Can I do it?
Yeah, you do it.
Yeah. We have a new guest, Amaia,
Hi.
and a returning guest.
Whoa!
Whoa! Okay, so last time Seri was on with Jack for the music episode, but now we have Amaia and Seri because they are the heads of the
Students for Social
Change
Yeah,
Club.
we are the co-leads of our school's social justice club. So what we do is we basically just bring our kids together and we talk about current events and other stuff going on in the world.
Yeah, and we even had we have a 745 club, and we
Yes.
had a little duo moment there
We did.
during the presidential election time.
Mm-hmm.
Rocky. Anyways, well, today's podcast is a little bit more intellectual. We actually all did research on this, which
Yes.
even Zach. So
Even me.
that says a lot.
Yeah.
But today's podcast is on the housing crisis in Los Angeles, or the world, but also we live in Los Angeles. And that's what we're gonna go on about. Can we do highs and lows though?
Sure.
You wanna
Hi.
Yeah, or your life.
Life.
Okay.
Life is very hard.
Huh?
Or life or day.
Life. Well, today. Well, actually, my low. It kind of got resolved though into a high.
Good.
So my low was like I was worried that I wasn't doing enough over summer. So I talked to my research head educator, and she said that she could maybe hook me up with some actual research in a lab. And so that's my high. And so I could be doing psychology on pigeons and how they learn. So
okay.
yeah, watch out.
So is that your high too then?
Yeah, that's my
Okay.
high. Is that I sort of
Love that.
and she's really important and stuff, and so I did it super well. I was like, oh, are you busy right now? And I just
Mr. Professional.
yeah, Mr. Professional.
Yeah. Well, my high is that if you guys haven't been watching the podcast, you wouldn't know, but you should be. My Ultra Human ring is coming. It has already arrived at my house, and I'm really excited. And my low is that I have so much homework, and I have to edit a Lunar New Year video for my Chinese teacher, and it's going to take a long time.
Yeah. Okay, my high. Damn, this is actually putting me on the spot. My high is probably in my music class. We're almost done with the song that we're writing for my album.
Ooh, album!
Not gonna be released. It's only for my class.
Oh.
But
Oh.
no, don't wait for the release. And my low is probably that I have bio due in 2 days that I haven't started.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
I think my high was having a really easy exit slip.
Oh,
in
yeah, that was really
science.
good.
Mm-hmm.
And then my low was probably having a lot of homework to do later.
Awesome. Okay.
I see a theme.
We are going to come back in 2 seconds, but we're going to take a quick little break. We're back.
We're back.
So today's a chill pod, but it's not chill because the subject is not chill, but it's structured the way it is. So we have a 6 questions
You have some very
Yeah.
good
that we kind of
questions,
all research on. So we're going to have a little, what's it called? Round table discussion,
Okay.
but in a
Artemis.
line table.
Yeah. Sounds
Okay, so the first question we thought would be a good question are, just for some context, what laws, designs, and ideas have been put into place to stop unhoused individuals from living or sleeping around
good. On the streets.
on the streets?
Why do you want to take this one first?
Sure. Just kind of in general, there's a lot of different regulations put in place. You can't sleep in certain areas. You can't be loitering. They've put spikes on benches and handrails so people can't sleep there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think there's someone's peeking in. No, but there's a lot of architectural things. I recently read a book called Evicted, which I think everyone should read. It's about the housing crisis kind of all over our world and how it's such an awful cycle is what's happening. And they talked a lot about the architecture and how like you said, there's spikes or they're
Hostile
angled
architecture.
like this,
Yeah.
so you can't sleep or anything.
Yeah. Or
Also-
the little hand thing in the
Yeah,
middle
yeah,
of
yeah.
benches. Yeah.
Right.
And especially they're on the city ones too,
Yeah,
where it
yeah,
says
yeah.
their name, so it's
Awful, but there's also just so many police or campus and just law enforcement that are constantly pushing people out or even though I don't think it's lawful, threatening to arrest people for being places that don't even have a loitering sign or something like that. And
When I was doing research for this question, the answers that I came up with, I kind of decided divided them into two main categories. One being designs to kind of just keep people off the streets in general. Like, it doesn't matter where they go as long as they're not on the streets, which is kind of what we've been talking about, the hostile architecture, the spikes, the sloped windowsills. And then the second category was kind of a broader category of, like, generally just, like, what are the rights of the homeless that we're talking about. So one example that I found was that in 2018, with a case called Martin v. Boys, it was ruled that it was considered cruel and unusual punishment to punish an individual for life-sustaining activities such as sleeping or finding shelter on the streets. But unfortunately, or depending on what your opinion is, could be unfortunate or not, this case was overturned in 2024 by the case of City of Grants, Pass v. Johnson, which ruled that the 8th Amendment applied to those facing criminal charges and not those. And since the act of being homeless and sleeping on the street isn't a crime, then fines, temporary bans from public property, and 1-month jail sentences were not considered cruel or unusual. So we have these things that are like legislation keeping homeless people off the streets, but then it's like, where do we put them after they're off the streets? So we have short-term, like 1-month jail sentences, but then also, as of late, Law 5150 was expanded. So Law 5150 is a California law that says that you can temporarily hospitalize an individual experience a mental health crisis, and involuntarily, so without their consent. You can say that somebody is going through a mental health crisis and just put them in a mental health institution.
Right.
And what happened in, I think, 2023 was that the definition of, like, somebody going through a mental health crisis expanded to apply to people who are just not able to support themselves because of, like, drug addiction, substance addiction, and other mental health issues. So what's interesting to think about there is, like, are you thinking about, like, what are the moral rights of, is this morally correct? Is this morally wrong? Because a lot of people that oppose this would be, like, disability rights activists.
Right.
Because you could say that it's morally incorrect to detain people against their will. For their mental health crises.
Right.
But it's like, what is better for them?
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads us into, well, this will be later, but we can just go into it now. Should housing be considered a fundamental human right or not? And because there's, like, so many nuances, like, oh, like, you can put them into a mental institution without their consent, and some people, like, really are against that. I think the question really gets more murky. I mean, if you just Google it, they'll give you, like, yes and no answers that just don't understand the nuances to it. But like Seri said, there's just so many more things that make it so murky. Yeah,
when you think about, like, housing as a fundamental human right, I think, in my personal opinion, that in an idealistic sense, yes, housing should be a personal human right. It should be, because one of the things that you need to kind of sustain your own life is shelter.
Right.
But at the same time, with the way our society works, our economy works, sometimes just housing isn't realistic for some people, because not only the only thing about buying a house isn't just buying the house, it's also maintenance, how you file for taxes, like house insurance, all those things that some people, especially those people who are going through mental health crises, can't handle on their own. So in an idealistic sense, where, like, in a perfect world where everybody has enough money and is able to sustain themselves, yes, housing should be a fundamental human right. But I think you kind of have to take into it, like you were saying, all the nuances of the situation and everything.
Absolutely.
And then I have to agree, but it's also important to note that, like, the housing prices have increased 277% since 2000, and the household income has only increased 115%.
Yeah. And also
same with, like, inflation and everything's getting more expensive, but
people are making more money.
Exactly.
So, and it's not even the homeless that can't afford houses anymore. It's, like, the middle class are not being able to. And
and that's where I think the conversation definitely has shifted, because when I was reading my book, he was talking about, like, how a lot of the conversation used to be just, like, the absolute, like, the poverty line, like, everyone was super below the poverty line that, like, actually has nothing, but also the conversation has completely moved into people who, like, in the old American dream, they could have had, like, a house, but because of these weird, like, inflation stuff and, like, people just not making enough money to compete with how much everything costs, that like that's like the new area of like danger, is just like even being in the semi middle class, semi lower middle class. That's where a lot of the issues also come about.
Yeah, we were just actually talking about like minimum wage
Yeah,
in
yeah.
info lit, one of the classes that we have, and it's like it's really interesting, and not even in outside that class, you just see clips like why am I working 4 jobs and I still can't
Right.
afford to pay
Right.
my rent, or like just things like that, and it's like really interesting to me, but also it's a little like scary
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
like partly demotivating and also motivating
Yeah.
in like in a way of like searching for jobs, or like that's like demotivating, sort of like where like just like you have to like,
What ifs?
yeah, like if your job is gonna get like what if it gets taken by AI
Yeah.
and now you don't have a job and
Yeah.
you can't afford your house, and then also but like B, like it's like sort of motivating in the sense where you gotta like really like
Work
lock
it.
in, and
Yeah.
like you gotta find your like niche kind of thing. But
Yeah, and in another sense, it comes back to, I know this was a different question, but income
Yeah.
inequality,
Yep.
and how we're talking about, how we're always saying the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and that it really is true. And
Yeah.
there's so many systemic things in place that just like it's so hard to break down that system of like the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. We're so depending on these large companies and organizations that kind of distribute everything, and we see that like the homelessness rates are the highest in the cities that are expensive to live in.
Oh yeah.
Like the New York, Seattle,
Los Angeles.
California, Los Angeles. Yeah, so it's just like there's so many systemic things in place that kind of are really hard to solve.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, just in like, first of all, even without even owning a home, just even being able to rent a home, rent has been such a conversation, especially because of the fires and COVID. And there's so many landlords and people who own properties that are taking advantage of the whole situation. And it's really, I mean, it's awful to see, because there's part of the community, we just talked about this on the fire episode, there's part of a community that's like being really supportive and helpful, and like they're donating stuff and providing spaces to live. But there's another side of people who, I mean, a lot of them actually don't live in Los Angeles. They just own places in Los Angeles, and they are raising their rents or making it harder for people to get living spaces because they know that everyone is so desperate. And so the rent control is such an issue. Also, like, zoning laws are kind of insane. I was looking into it kind of late yesterday, but like, we need to like make it so that like there's, what they said is like you need it for higher density and like mixed income developments, so that it's every like a little bit more balanced, instead of just like the super rich, like quote unquote, like Beverly Hills and like the poor areas of Los Angeles. Like you kind of need a vibe.
more like integration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Integration. Yeah.
but again, these things are so hard to combat because it's like systemically they've been implemented into our societies, and it's been kind of built upon for so many years that it's like, how do we break that down at the end of the day?
And I think that's a great question to end on for a quick little ad. Okay, we're back from a short little break, and we ended on a great question Seri asked, which is going to lead us to our next question. How can young people contribute to solving the housing crisis, whether it's through activism, volunteering, raising awareness? We're raising awareness right now.
Yeah.
That's true.
But
yeah.
yeah, what are some, because I know it's such a daunting issue that it feels like, well, there's like nothing I can do, but like little steps go a long way is also the mindset.
Well,
Sorry, you go first.
okay. Well, I was just gonna say, like, I remember someone's birthday party, LABK.
Oh!
I wonder who's
OBKLA.
OBKLA. Sorry,
Yes.
yeah. And it's
Oh, whose birthday
our
was
big
that?
kitchen, and I think it's really helpful because it's just like it's not like with like a homeless shelter. It's like there are like lots of rules and regulations there,
Right.
and like that sometimes can seem like a reason for like unhoused individuals to like not want to go.
Right.
But with this, they go out and they offer food and supplies to unhoused individuals.
And no strings attached.
And no strings attached,
Right.
exactly.
So if you guys don't know what OBKLA is, it's this organization, it's called Arba Kitchen, and basically they have a bunch of volunteers, which you can go volunteer if
Yes.
you're in LA. Also if you're in Miami, I guess. And they just, you volunteer and you cook I think we cooked like 500 meals.
Yeah.
That's
Wow,
really
that's
insane.
Like
crazy.
1,000
And
cookies or
only
something.
like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you can make a bunch of meals and then they will send it out and deliver it to the people who need it. But that's kind of what we did. When we did it, I think a portion of ours went to the LAFD because we did it during like the severe fire times. But yeah, also like just a quick little story, and I told this on the pod before, but I'll tell you guys too. There's this guy, and I listened to this podcast on him, and he really saw this housing crisis and was like, oh, he actually had a job before this and a life before this, but this became his like new life. And he was like, oh no, like I can't stand like seeing this, is so awful. And so he found this huge plot of land and was like, I want to buy this and make it like a little area for just unhoused individuals to get back on their feet and like have a bunch of like small little homes and like even like Airstream vans and stuff like that, so they could just like have a place to be. And he raised like millions of dollars like out of nowhere. He called a bunch of high school friends, college friends, people he knows who has like some bands, and he raised so much money. But then so many people in the surrounding neighborhood were like, no, we don't want these people around our homes because they're gonna bring down our housing like prices or whatever. Yeah, and they're like, oh, this is gonna like lower how much my house is gonna be worth. And so they had a petition and they banned him from doing it. And so but then eventually he ended up being able to do it, and he like fought against it. So now there's a place in Texas where they just, it's awfully hot there, but they have a place where everyone can be, and every weekend they have like movie nights together and barbecues, and it's a communal space. And he doesn't like have rules, just like you were saying about the shelters and stuff. There's not like, oh, you have to be back at this time, no drugs, no alcohol. The only rule is like you can have your things if you need your situations, but you have to do it inside your own living space during the communal space. No drugs, no alcohol. It's like a clean area type of vibe.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit more joy.
I think one of the most important things when it comes to like spreading awareness for kids, especially kids our age, and actually at any age, is just educating yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And knowing what is actually the root of the problem, how does it happen, like what are the effects. And I think that once you do your educate yourself, you kind of can come up with form your own opinions from there. Like my personal opinion is that providing shelter and housing, while it is important, I think the thing that we really need to work on more is reforming our mental health institutions.
Right.
Because that is the root of a lot of problems in the homeless community.
Absolutely.
So I think that first, like, educating yourself and then spreading awareness, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of ways to do that in basically every community across the United States. Going out and volunteering, doing whatever, a lemonade stand to raise money.
Yeah.
I think little things like that can help on small scales. And then if you want to get involved on a bigger scale, you would kind of do research on legislation locally,
lobbying.
at a state level, at a local level, a national level, whatever, and seeing if you can do anything to try to influence legislation, or like petition for, since we're below voting age, spread awareness about how people can vote to better the homelessness situation.
Yeah.
And spread awareness about that, I think.
And I think,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
going back to your mental health point, 2/3 of homeless people in California are struggling with mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think allowing them to access the resources, like mental health resources, on their own terms would be like significantly more helpful than forcing them into these institutes.
Right.
I disagree. Sorry.
Wait.
Sorry.
No, please share.
I think that like I know in terms of like human rights, obviously, for like voluntary hospitalization would sound kind of better, but like at the end of the day, if you're going through a mental health crisis and you aren't really in the right state of mind, there's no guarantee that what's better for you.
Right.
And I think that if they are given the choice, because we also see that the mental health institutions have kind of bad reviews.
Right.
A lot of people report negative experiences in mental health institutions. So if they were given the choice, they would say no. But is it really better to stay on the streets and not be able to support yourself?
Right.
And whenever you get money, you spend it on whatever drugs or alcohol you're addicted to, or whatever you have going on, than to just be kind of involuntarily put into a mental health institution. And if more money was put into it, then it would be able to support
better.
more people and
Right.
they would be able to have a better experience. But with this cost of kind of some of their human rights being taken away.
Right.
In the sense of,
When I like look at that, like I just think that like again what you said, like the more money we put into it, the better it could be for people. And also like tough love is like something really important, and you might not even think you need help, and sometimes it's too hard to admit you want help.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately just like involuntarily doing it might be like your saving grace. But also what to Amaya's point, there are free therapy sources, and we talked about this on the Fire Pod with Mr. Zaba, who's our wellness educator. We're gonna link it down below because I forgot the name. It's like Sluvidia.
I think it's called like
Sluv something.
Ula or you.
We will find it,
we'll
and
find
we will
it.
link it down below.
But it is free.
Free therapy.
It's I think it's for anyone, right?
Anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody.
It was made for like teenagers, I think, but it's for anybody.
Yeah.
So
but another thing to think about with that is that like if somebody is actually going through a mental health crisis and they're living on the streets because of their mental health crisis, they're not all gonna know that they need therapy.
yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah.
I think that's like sort of like a stereotype that like people just I guess in general, but also for like unhoused individuals is like getting help is okay.
Yeah.
It's not like putting up the white flag is not the end of the world and like anything like that. It's actually probably better for rather than like sticking through it. And also I wanted to say like about like this mental health issue is a lot of unhoused individuals are veterans and vets.
Yeah.
And a lot of time the military doesn't provide mental health
resources.
treatment or even preparation, or like really they don't really talk about it too much. But yeah, so I think that's something else we should change.
Yeah, and like another thing to think about is that not all people, like unhoused individuals who are going through a mental health crisis, are really in a correct state of mind where they can evaluate their situation and decide what resources they need or what treatment they might need depending on their situation. Like some of them have more serious disorders like PTSD, schizophrenia, stuff like that, and it's really not in their like they wouldn't really know what they need.
Right.
So I think and those would be the types of scenarios where it would be involuntary containment would be kind of a better option in my opinion.
Yeah, and even like the severity. Oh, you go.
No, but I think just adding on to that, I 100% agree. But I think what happens after their 1 month stay there if they didn't want to be there in the first place? Would they go back to using substances and having mental health crises? Like, how long can they be instituted before they start having to pay and then getting put into more debt?
Yeah. So I think that's like the harder questions that we all need to think about.
Yeah.
Just to kind of recap and close off, the mental health crisis is just an ongoing, pretty awful cycle, and we can't just stop the housing crisis without stopping the cycle. And the free therapy stuff, it could help somebody who's not at a severe place, who might end up in a severe place, and so that can probably slow down or stop that cycle for that person at least. There's a lot of activism and volunteering you can do. We will put the links down below for sure.
Yes.
We're gonna find that from our Fire Pod with Mr. Zabo. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming onto the
Thank
podcast.
you for having us.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you for all the research you did.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah, you guys did a lot of
Yeah,
research.
like,
That was really good.
trust
You
us.
had like
No,
laws
trust-
and stuff, and I was
trust
like,
us.
Yeah, I was like,
Hold up.
oh,
Yeah,
oh.
dude,
You were very
Yeah.
confident. You were very
Yeah, just
Awesome.
I pulled up.
Anyways, keep on keeping on.
Keep on
Bye,
keeping
guys.
on.
Keep on keeping
Bye,
on.
bye.
Bye.